Hello, welcome everyone tonight. My name is Chris Ogonek. I'll kind of start off with that, and I will say thank you very much for joining us, either live or if you are going to watch this afterwards. Then that's fantastic as well. But what is tonight? Well, tonight is Nikon Canada's AMA, our Ask Me Anything. Now, this can be, as an Ask Me Anything, literally about anything. We've already had a question come in about solar eclipses. We're probably going to jump into a whole bunch of Nikon-specific product talk. But yes, all of that is great. The few things I will not be touching on is if anybody wants to know about future products or future firmware updates, all of that is unknown until it is actually announced. But beyond that, the Ask Me Anything is literally an Ask Me Anything. Now, I may not have every single answer. As much useless information as I have in my brain, I will be the first to tell you that there is a lot that I do not know. So if I need to get back to you with an answer, then what I will go and do is after this is finished, I will go in the comments, because this live chat that we have streaming on the side here, that will go away. But I will go in the comment section of the actual video that is on our page, and I will try to go and give you an update through that means. So how do we go and ask questions? Well, somebody's already asked where you go and input that. You go and input it in the little live comment thread that we have on the side here. Ask any question you want, and we'll probably jump on in right now. I will start with John's question. John is asking about, I'd like to ask about ND filters for shooting the eclipse. Now, John, I will say this is probably, actually, no, this is not probably. This is one of the questions that I will come back to, and I'll give you a little bit more detail, because we actually have, we're in the works of it, not to blow the secret, but we're going to have a video or two about the solar eclipse coming over the next little while. So we will have in the next week or two an actual video stating how to prepare for the solar eclipse, because we all know, if anybody was kind of around a couple years ago when we had the last solar eclipse, trying to go and get safe filters or safe glasses to actually view the eclipse or take photos of the eclipse, that is very, very difficult to do as you get closer and closer to the actual eclipse itself. So it is very good, John, that you're thinking about it this early. That is fantastic. The only thing I'll really say, because I know we've actually purchased a couple of them ourselves, you're looking for, I think it's like 16 and a half or more stops worth of an ND filter to go and have it be safe for your camera. That's all I'll pretty much leave it with right now. But like I said, I will go and give you more detailed questions, or more detailed answer in the comment section afterwards. I will try and give you a couple links, ones that we found that we were happy with, and that we would kind of be able to recommend. All right, we're definitely getting some other questions in here. That is fantastic. All right, so Dowdy's asking about it. He's asking two questions, so he's jumping in already. So he's asking, tell me about extended menu banks and how to manage picture controls. Now, I do have a couple cameras that I have plugged in, HDMI, as you can see here. So I will be able to go and show some camera menus if that's required. So I'm actually going to answer number 2 first. So I'll answer how to, or what manage picture controls actually means. So if I have this there. All right, so now you should be able to see my screen. And if I go into the shooting menu bank, and then we go all the way down to, so you have set picture control, which obviously this will allow you to choose any of the vast quantity worth of picture controls that we have. But you also have manage picture control. And this is what Dowdy was asking about. So what you're able to do is you're able to go and save, because, okay, so, well, let me go back. All my answers are unfortunately never going to be short, guys. I do apologize for that. So you can see here, flat monochrome. You can see next to the FM that there's no asterisks. But monochrome, there is an asterisk. So what does that asterisk mean? So if you go, I'm going to click the right pad on the D-pad, and that brings me even deeper. This allows me to make small changes. So if I want, let's say, to bump up the quick sharpness, if I want to go down to clarity by itself, if I click now the OK button, you'll notice that flat monochrome, the FM, has an asterisk next to it. That means that you've made a small change to your picture control. But what happens if you want the standard flat monochrome, but you also want a completely, I'll say, your own version of it? Well, that's where the manage picture control comes in. So from there, you can go save or edit. Now in here, I will go flat monochrome. I'll really go crazy. Changes will be lost. I'll say yes. I'll really, really go and crank that up. I'll crank the contrast way up. The filter effect, why not? Let's go red. So I'll just go nuts. Now I'm able to go and save this, and I believe there's 10. Okay, so there's nine in total. So you have 9 custom picture controls that you can go and save. So if I want to go and save this one as flat monochrome, and then I'm going to flat monochrome CO. So that's my option. So now if I go all the way to the very bottom here, let's see if I actually know what I'm doing. There we go, flat monochrome CO. So this allows you to create and keep separate from the original in a way that you want. There's also other ways you can actually use the manage picture control, though. None that I can really use right now because I haven't done it previously. But this load, why would you have a load option? Well, what you're able to do is you're able to actually go and use one of our free software pieces. It's called Picture Control Utility. And using Picture Control Utility, you can actually upload your own photo. So let's say you do a lot of wildlife, or you do a lot of night photography. You can go and upload one of your photos to it, and you can go and use some of the controls. So you can have custom curves. You can go change the brightness, the contrast, the saturation, dial it in as much as you want. From there, you can save to a memory card, pop that memory card into your camera, and then you would go and use that load function within the manage picture control, and you can go and load your custom picture control that you've created from your computer onto your camera. All right, so that's kind of cool. And then the first question that Dowdy had actually asked about was about the extended menu banks. Because if you see here, you have your shooting menu banks, you have your ABCD, and then you have the ability to turn the extended on or off. Now, the cool thing about this, and this is kind of a two-stage answer in one, is if you find on the back of your camera on this Z8, it's going to be the small little question mark that you see on the bottom here. If I go and press that question mark, if you turn extended menu banks on, this is now the help menu. It's telling you that it will increase the number of items stored in the menu banks A through D to include the shooting mode, shutter speed, and aperture. Or if you're in video, shooting, shutter speed, and aperture A&M mode. Or if it's off, then shooting mode, shutter speed, and aperture are restored to what the effect was before. So basically, this means that if you have extended menu banks turned on, that this will give you the ability to remember and store your shutter speed, aperture, and your mode. So whether you're in aperture priority mode, full manual, shutter priority, or P mode. I did that in a weird order, but that's okay. I hope that answers your question there, Dowdy. All right. Now, photo lens. Why can't the Nikon Z8 connect to the DJI RS3? That I don't 100% know, to be totally honest with you. I believe it has something to do with the Bluetooth connection. With some of our other cameras that has the ability to control or to connect to our MLL7, you can do this kind of weird, kind of funny hack where you can go and utilize that to control or to go and connect to the DJI. Because the Z8 does not have the ability to use the MLL7, you cannot go and use that ability to control it. So that's the answer. Why is it? I don't 100% know, to be very honest with you. This is something I've brought up in the last little bit, because this has come to my attention before. So I have asked the question as to if it is possible to go and have the MLL7 compatibility, which then theoretically should give compatibility with that kind of work through. But until it happens, I can't say for sure. Okay, I'm being told by my magician in my ear that there is a form that says that the Z8 and the DJI work together. I haven't seen them myself, but we'll see if my little helper in my ear will answer for me. Yeah. All right. So Claude. Please describe the process to ensure the printed image corresponds best to the one on the computer screen of the Mac running Nikon View NX. Oi, oi, oi. Okay. Unfortunately, this is not a printing calibration seminar. Unfortunately, to be very honest with you, just going through that alone, we'd probably be here for about an hour or two. It can be a complex set of I'll say steps to follow. What I will say, Cloud, is that I will go and try and answer this one and give you a little bit more answers, because without walking it through the actual software itself, it's a little bit difficult, and it could very easily bog down this entire AMA. I'll be very honest with you. That can be a very, very complex answer, because whether you're utilizing View NX, whether you're using Photoshop, Lightroom, it really doesn't matter. Getting the correct calibration between because there's a lot going on here. There's the monitor calibration. There's your printer calibration, there's the paper calibration, and then they're just making sure that they all work together. So this is more of a printer kind of overall workflow that we'd have to get into. So I'll see if I can go and get back to you about that a little bit afterwards. All right, so Michael Mallow Drums is asking, I have a new Nikon, a new MacBook Pro with Ventura, the latest Lightroom, and the Z8. Do you know when tethering will work in Lightroom Classic? I called Adobe, but could not resolve it. Okay, so the answer my short answer is no. I do not have an answer for you, because tethering is always an Adobe issue or solution. I don't know which one it is. Depending on whether it's working or not, I guess, is whether it's a solution or an issue for you. So I will say, generally, most software companies, be it Adobe, be it Capture One, usually the last thing to get compatible with a new camera, even though it came out last May or so, is tethering. I've seen Lightroom take years, well over a year to 2.5 to come up with full compatibility for tethering. So going direct through Lightroom, I will not have an answer, because that is completely and entirely up to them. And when they're able to go and either make it work, when they want to make it work, whatever the process that they have that's in place has to be finished until it's completed. But that being said, I do have a work around, or the workflow that I do recommend in most cases. And it's actually using our free software. So this is NX Tether. NX Tether basically allows you to completely either wirelessly or wired, whether it's USB-C, or if you're going to go and use Ethernet, will that work? Sorry, my brain is telling me that I may not. Either way, USB will absolutely work, and wireless definitely will work as well. When you go and, let's say, plug in the NX Tether software on your computer, will automatically recognize it. And then from there, what you would go and do is you would set up basically a where to dump all the photos. So you would say, I'm going to go put it in my Chris February 26 folder. Boom. And then every photo I take using NX Tether will just automatically dump the photos there. From the Lightroom side, you would then go and activate your hot folders. Now, your hot folder basically tells Lightroom where should Lightroom look to automatically import photos. and show them on the screen as they're actually taken. So the nice thing about this is when you rely on third-party software entirely to deal with tethering, there's generally some sort of incompatibility that can always kind of arise. I've seen it with Capture One, let's say, for example. They come out with a compatible update, which means it will work, but you may not have all functionality. So you maybe can't zoom in, you can't check focus, all these different little things. Well, by relying on our NX Tether, you can go and basically ensure that it's always going to work, because it's going to work well because it's Nikon software working with a Nikon camera. And then all that Lightroom is having to do is look at a folder, pull up that photo, and show it to you. So generally, I'll say generally that's an easier way to go and actually use tethering in this day and age. I know a lot of people are used to using just that one third-party software to do everything, but I would go and try our NX Tether and then go and use the hot folders with Lightroom. We did just actually come out with version 2.0, a major update for the NX Tether software. This gave it a whole slew of different upgrades, from going and giving you a live view preview, which was fantastic. And it opened up a whole ton of different options that you can now do directly from your computer, that basically gives you almost every functionality of the camera directly when you're actually on the computer. All right, so let me look here. All right, so Shane is asking, I have a Z8 in manual mode. After I have set the aperture and the shutter speed, I sometimes accidentally move the front aperture dial and change the aperture. Is there a way to change to lock the aperture? The answer is yes. And back up comes the trusty Z8. Now, we absolutely can do that. Let me see if I can properly remember how to get there. We are going to go to controls. So you're going to go the little pencil, custom settings menu, go down to F controls. There we go. Yep. So F4. So this is control lock. And I'm in P mode, so I do not have that ability to do it. But let's say I go into full manual. I go back into it, and hopefully, there we go. So what you can actually do is you can actually go in and have aperture lock turned on, or shutter speed, or your focus point even gone and locked. Now, you can go and just lock it there and have it set that way all the time, or there's a few ways that you can actually go and speed that up. So one of the ways is to go and use My Menu. Now, My Menu is fantastic. I use it quite a lot. And what I would go and do is I would go in here and I would add item, go back down to custom setting menu, go back to F control, F4, and then aperture lock. Boom. So now that that is set as there, I'm going to go back to F controls. Sorry if I'm making everybody seasick with all the jumping around I'm doing, but I'm not going to go back to F4. I'm going to go to F2, custom controls. So here, I'm actually going to, and it's right there, access top menu in My Menu. So now, the very top, the FN1 button, when I go and press that, the first thing it's going to bring up is this option, and boom, turn it off or turn it on if it was already off. So let's try that again. So it's off right now. You want to go and lock it because you don't want to accidentally do that. Press it, one click, and now you see that little L that's over the F8. That's it now, fully locked in. I do believe there's another way to let's just wait and let's just see if I'm right or wrong here. What I'm looking for. Yeah, control lock. So yeah, okay. So another way to do it is, so right now I'm Let's see, is there any way to indicate that for you? No. But when I press now, if I go and rotate the front dial, so I'm pressing FN1 and I'm holding it in right now, and you can see that nothing's happening at all. But when I go and rotate the front dial, all right, so I'm pressing and holding the FN1 and nothing is happening. It's functioning as always. But when I go and rotate this front button here, watch what happens to the L over the F8 at the very bottom. It's off. And now it's on. And now it's off. And now it's on. If I want to go and lock the shutter speed, I can now rotate the back dial to turn that off and the back dial to turn that on. So you have a few different ways that you're able to go and control that, whether it's the top menu in my menu, or if you want to go and dedicate a button just to that, you press and hold, and then you can rotate any of your dials to turn them on or off. All righty, let's see this next question here. Michael, when will the Z9 have the same capabilities as Z8 to assign selection of the different AF areas to a programmable button? I don't know. That I do not know. This is one of those questions that I kind of talked about at the beginning, where if it is a future firmware option or question, I don't know the answer to it. Well, when it happens, it happens. Until it does, we will just have to hope. But for anybody who's curious, because I think I know what you're talking about. Okay, hold on. Let me just read this. Slow my brain down because I'm in presenter and reading and answering mode all at once. Okay, so what I think he's asking about, and this is actually one of my one of the things I really liked about the latest Z8 firmware update. And let's actually go and show you guys right now. So we'll go back into F controls, go back into F2. I'll use FN1 again just because. And then what I am looking for is, obviously it's going to be, there we go. Okay, so it's going to be cycle AF area mode. And Michael, you can let me know if this is what you are, if you are asking about. I probably won't see it for a few minutes until I scroll down to that section of the comments, because I'm doing a lot all at once here. But if this is what I think you're asking about, cycle AF area mode means that I can go and customize one button to cycle through the different AF modes. We obviously know, I've been talking about it for years. Hopefully everybody here knows about it. You have the ability to customize different buttons with one button push to, let's say, activate, as you see here, AF area mode plus AF on, or to activate just an AF area mode. But sometimes some people want to cycle quickly, and there were ways to do it, ways to kind of hack it and do it before. But this is a very simple way to go and do it, where you can even go and deactivate. So if you only want, let's say, wide area, large, and 3D, you only want those two. I've now dedicated, as you saw here, the FN1 button to be that cycle. And as I go here, so this is me just pressing once and letting go, pressing once and letting go. And you can see at the top of the screen that it's going 3D to wide area, 3D to wide area. So it's just cycling back and forth between those two different options by me pressing that one button. So I think that's what you're talking about there, Michael. And I don't know is the final answer, but for anybody who does have a Z8, this is a really, really cool new feature. All right, so Raymond Close, is it possible to use an SB5000 as a master and SB900 as a remote with TTL on a Nikon Z6 II? So you want a 5000 on the camera. Yes. The answer is definitely yes there. What you would need to do, and I don't have an SB5000 here, unfortunately. You could also flip that around. You could have the SB900 be the commander on the actual flash, on the actual hot shoe itself, and then you could have the SB5000 be an optical, and I say optical remote because there's obviously a radio remote or an optical using CLS, our creative lighting system. There's so many acronyms I could get into right now. So you could either have the SB900 as a commander and talking to the remote SB5000, or you could have the SB5000 on the camera talking to the remote SB900. For the 5000 as a commander, you will have to go and activate that through the menu itself. Unfortunately, I don't have a flash, so I can't walk you all the way through this, but what you would have to do is you would have to go into the photo shooting menu. From here, you would go to flash control, which is grayed out because I don't have a flash with me. Right. And then from flash control, you would have, I forget what the exact menu is called, but it's something along the lines of commander mode or something along those lines. And then if you have a radio, you can change, select radio, you can select optical, or you can select none, I think. In this case, you would select obviously optical because you want it to be an optical commander to go and talk to the SB900. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think that answers that. I hope. If it doesn't, let me know in the comments, and I'll get back to it in a few seconds. Ooh, okay. So Norm, am I correct? This is fantastic. Am I correct that picture controls only apply to JPEG files? Yes and no. It depends on what software you're using, and I'll dig into that a little bit deeper. So yes, obviously a JPEG is having a lot of the information baked into it. And once that information is baked into it, boom, it's now a converted compressed JPEG file that has things like active delighting and picture controls fully baked in. You can't change it. Now, technically, our raw files still have all that data. So if you go in, I was using the flat monochrome before. So if you go and choose flat monochrome when you shoot, that will be the raw file, the NEF file will know that it was taken as flat monochrome. Now, if you go and open it using our NX Studio, if you go use NX Studio, open it up, it will automatically go and show you in flat monochrome the way that the photo was taken in camera. So you will see the exact thing that you saw in camera on your computer screen using our NX Studio software, because obviously there's zero incompatibility. They just the color science is the same, which is a good thing. Now, that being said, if you are using our software and you want to go and you've shot in flat monochrome, but you want to change it afterwards, if you shot raw, you can go and do that. You can change the picture control to anything you want. But what happens if you use non-Nikon software and you want to go and edit it afterwards, or you want that flat monochrome to be kind of imprinted onto it? The answer is yes, you can do it. Now, I'm not going to speak to, I'll say most software. I will say Lightroom or other Adobe products, just because they are the most popular. There is a way when you are importing your file into, let's say, Lightroom, you are able to tell it, I want you to import it with the camera settings. That is not a default way that Lightroom is set up. But if you have that kind of box checked off, then it will go and remember a lot of your settings. Even if like things like active delighting, it'll bump up the shadows. It'll try and bring down the highlights. Or it will try and go and utilize one of the Adobe matched picture profiles. So they have their own. They have Adobe Portrait, Adobe Landscape, Adobe flat profile, monochrome, whatever it might be. They have a lot of the Adobe ones, but they also have camera profiles. So what they've done there is they've tried to match their colors with our colors coming out of the camera. So it's not perfect. It's not going to be absolutely bang on. It just we can't really expect it to be. There are two different companies working together, and as close as they are, it's not exactly the same, but it's very, very close. So that's actually how I have mine set up. So I usually shoot with like a portrait, and I kind of dial a few things up a little bit. I'll increase the sharpness a touch, increase the saturation, but I like how the shadows pop or are a little bit raised on the portrait. It's a little bit more flat. Well, I'll shoot with that, and then because I have that import settings turned on, I will actually see most of those changes in my Lightroom when I actually import the files into it. So you're thinking of, will the picture controls only work for JPEG? Yes, but you can make it work a little bit more functionally for you if you want to. All right. So, Nancy. All right. I see a long one here. So, everybody bear with me here. Is there a way to view the live exposure / adjustment settings on the viewfinder LCD screen? The Z6 has a specific option in display that allows for live adjustment of exposures, etc. And I'm seeing a couple other questions from her regarding question 1. Okay, yeah, so this is in reference to using strobes or speedlights. Okay, so is there a way to view the live exposure? The answer depends. Sorry, my brain. You'll see me pause every once in a while as my brain tries to catch up to what my mouth is about to say. Most of the time, you don't want that. Sorry, I'm just trying to formulate my answer here. The reason you don't want to see the live exposure is because you're using strobes. Now, your actual question is, does the Z8 have a similar feature to the Z6 II where you can toggle on or off that? And the answer is absolutely. So if you go into custom setting menu, down to D shooting display, and you go all the way down to, I believe, D9. Yeah, D9. Now, the Z9 will have the same menu. If anybody's following along and is curious, it will be a little bit different. I believe it's D10. Yeah, it is. It's D10. And then here you have show effects of settings or adjust for ease of viewing. Show effects of settings is what you want to be able to see the effect of what your scene is. The reason I said most of the time you don't actually want that when you're shooting strobes is you want to be able to, you don't really care what the ambient light is doing per se. But I'm assuming, Nancy, you've already typed down below, there are some times where, let's say you're shooting outside and you're trying to balance the ambient with it. So yes, there are definitely times. The way I actually get around that, or the way I kind of use it, is by going back to, this is going to be my favorite menu all night long, I think, F controls, F2 custom controls. I'll go back to FN1, and I'm probably going to have to go all the way down. Oh, there we go. So you see the little flash / no flash, or I guess the opposite way, no flash / flash, disable, enable. So by me having that now as a button, whenever I'm using strobes or speed lights, and I'm trying to maybe jump back and forth for a few reasons. I might be trying to jump back and forth between just getting a bright view, which allows the camera to go and expose a little bit easier. It's able to focus. Sorry, it's able to focus a little bit easier on the eyes because it's not just fully darkened and shadowed down. But I'm just, as the photographer, able to compose the shot as I want. So I usually want a bright screen, which is usually the way the camera is going to show it to you. By me being able to press that FN1 button, it now deactivates the flash. So now the view screen, the EVF, the LCD on the back, it's automatically going to go from a bright to, it's going to darken down to whatever my settings would be if I was not using flash. So if it was a very, very, very dark scene, it would show me, okay, I'm fully dark. I'll use this in a studio setup where I want to make sure I don't have any extraneous light kind of bleeding into my photo, giving it a weird color cast. So I'll use it to check that. But sometimes if I am outside and I'm shooting, let's say, a lot of ambient light, let's say it's sunset. So you have the sun behind the people, and you maybe quickly want to jump and you want to deactivate the flash because you get a beautiful silhouette. Well, now with one button push, I'm able to not only see what my exposure would be like without flash, but I'm also able to just shoot that way if I want and get just a silhouette type of shot. Hopefully that made sense, Nancy. If it didn't, let me know in the comments, and I'll kind of try and come back to it. But the full answer is yes, you can go and access that same feature. We did change the naming of it from the Z6 II, but my way of doing it is not to actually deactivate that setting. It's to go in and use the flash disable, enable, and map that to one of my buttons. All right. Okay, so Evan. Evan is saying NX Tether Live View does not work on my Z50. It is only for full frame cameras. And yes, unfortunately, so version 1 of NX Tether for every camera had no live view functionality. With the version 2, it is only full frame cameras. And I'm racking my brain. It may not even be the Z5. Yeah, it may not even be the Z5, and that along with all of the DX cameras as well. So yes, I do that is true. And all I'm saying is yes, I'm confirming that you are correct. Why that is, I'm sure that you're about to type that. To be honest, I don't know. I don't know if it's a functionality of the cameras itself. If they don't have that ability built into them, I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately. And then Nancy, you had asked about when did NX Tether 2.0 come out? It was just 2 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was February 7th, so 3 weeks or so. Yeah. And yeah, so definitely go and download that if you do want to go and tether. I've been trying to put it through its paces, and it's working very, very well. I liked it before, but now if you do have version 1 was more for if you're, let's say, shooting a model in the studio where you're actually holding the camera yourself and you're not just pressing the button on the actual computer to go and take the file. Because what that would allow you to do is you would be holding the camera, you would fire, it would send it to your computer, and boom, it would pop up. So it was more of a checking after the fact, whether you have an art director there, you just want to see it, the model wants to see it, whatever reason. Version 2.0 really brings us now into expanding the capability out if you want to go and do some still life, if you want to go and shoot some macro, and you really, really want to get particular with, let's say, the focus, and you want to be able to see it on your screen before you shoot. That's where version 2.0 really kind of shines. Okay, so CDub777 is asking, what is the best way to set up a Z8 to quickly switch between focusing for portraits of groups and portraits of one person? Okay, now I might ask you to elaborate a little bit more on that, if I don't necessarily answer your question the way you hope. Because I'll be very honest, this is a very particular answer that not everybody will, because not everybody will shoot the same way. The way I shoot portraits of a group, setting wise, is going to be maybe different than the next person. So I will say and I'll kind of walk you through the menus here. For me, if I'm shooting a single person, I don't say I don't care, but it doesn't matter nearly as much what the autofocus mode is. I will probably jump between one of these two. Auto, as much as people may not in the DSLR world have ever trusted or wanted to use auto, especially when it comes to just one person in the frame, oh wow, does it do a spectacular job. It does great job in a lot of different scenes, but for this particular, in a portrait setting, in a studio setup, if the person is in the frame, the camera will focus on them. It's just that easy. 3D, I use, I'd say the majority of the time, probably 80-90% of the time. And for me, this is just as good to go and use for single portraits. You may have to do a teeny bit more work because you now have an autofocus box that you have to place over or around your subject's face, and then the camera will jump onto the eye. For me, I would use either one of these for a single person. But to be honest with you, I would even just usually stick with 3D for a group as well. Um, Generally, and obviously there's small use cases or small cases where this may not necessarily always happen, but generally, 3D autofocus, because you start with an autofocus box, you can usually be specific enough as to where you want it to focus that even if you have 3, 4, 5 people, put that box over person number 3 and it will track person number 3. If you do need to be more specific, excuse me, if you do need to be more specific at that point, I would probably go to a wide area small or a wide area large, as those will greatly decrease the ability of the camera to see in the frame, if that makes sense. So the 3D will start with the box, and then once it locks onto the eye, it will track it any which way you move. But if I go and have wide area setup, let's say wide area small, it's over, let's say here, right? It's a small little box. If I'm on this side, then this is the only part of the frame that will be looked at. This entire section over here will not be looked at entirely by the camera. So if you need to, for whatever reason, restrict where the camera is looking, I would say go to wide area, small, large, or one of the custom modes, and you can make it as big or small as you want. But otherwise, I have found great usage with 3D tracking. So for me, my answer is group and single group. I will use 3D for both of them. Auto works amazingly well for the single, and then for the group options, it really kind of depends on what you see is working for you in those instances. 3D should work well most of the time, but if you want to, you're able to go and restrict what the camera can see by using the wide area or the custom options. All right, so Pete, when formatting in the Z9, I use the quick method all the time. Should I use the full method? I've never used it. To be honest, it's not going to make or break it most of the time. I would every once in a while use the full method. What the full method is doing now, okay, I'll preface that by explaining what the full method does and then tell you sometimes maybe why you may not want to. The quick method, if anybody's curious what we're talking about here, if you go into the setup menu and then you go to the very top section here, do I have a memory card in here? I do. Now, so you have quick format here, and it's saying for a full format, press the trash can button. So quick is going to do a erase of the files, which is what all formatting has always done. Can you get the files back? Yes, it is more difficult than just doing, let's say, a delete. It does get rid of the folder structure, so it makes it more difficult to get files back, but the files are still technically on the card. They've just essentially been hidden a couple levels down. And if you go and want to use some third-party recovery software, the files still are available somewhere within the actual memory card itself. Can you do it in a way to fully erase the card to make sure that there is zero chance of getting rid of the file or getting the files back? And the answer is yes, do a full format. So why would you want to do a full format? If you want to make sure that your card is completely clean, for whatever reason, whether it's privacy reasons, whether it's you just want to start from scratch, you want to make sure that the folder structures, that there's no reason for the card to possibly be corrupted. Because we know with, let's say, a regular card, if you have it in there, if you're deleting, not formatting, if you're deleting off of the memory card, that can sometimes cause issues with the numbering structure, which can possibly lead to card corruption. So if you want to every once in a while go and do a full format when you know that your photos that were on that card are fully backed up and saved in a couple locations just to make sure, then yes, do a full format just to go and kind of keep your card as fresh, as clean as it can be. All right. So, Victor, when doing high-speed continuous shooting with the Nikon Z, after 3 seconds, the view blacks out, so I'm shooting in the blind. What can be done about this? Okay, first, Victor, I'm not going to answer this question yet. I'm going to ask you if you can jump down and answer me which camera are you talking about? Because this is a very big difference, and along with that, not only which camera, but which high speed continuous mode are you talking about? Are you talking about on a Z8, Z9? Are you talking about the C30, the C60, the C120, or are you talking about a Z6 II, which is like high speed continuous plus? So that's what I'm looking for. Which camera and which mode are you talking about? All right, I'm seeing a couple. Thank you, Chris's, for showing me how to do that. That means I'm not completely messing up. That is good. Anna, people are raving about the high ISO capabilities, but I see no difference between a D750 and the Z8 when shot at the same ISO value. What am I missing? Well, Anna, I will say you're not necessarily missing anything, other than the fact that primarily when you look at what is going to give the best high ISO capability of a camera, generally the first and easy answer is pixel size. So the bigger the pixel, the better the high ISO performance will be. Well, a D750 has 24 megapixels. So I don't say that's low. That's definitely not low, but in the grand scheme of things, when we compare it against the Z7 II, Z8, Z9, it is relatively low. Those are all at 45. So considering you're telling me that what was considered a D750, one of the best performing low light cameras on the planet, even just a couple years ago, that performance is being equaled, and I'll say bested, and I'll get to that in a second, by a Z8, which has 45 megapixels, so significantly higher megapixel count. That to me is a big improvement, because I would say that most people who are seeing the Z8 ISO performance are looking at the megapixel count and going, there's no way. There's no way that this camera, whether it be a Z8, a Z9, are able to shoot in the situations it can, whether it's great light, whether it's bad light, and be able to shoot at whatever ISO essentially you want, and still get great quality out of it. Most of the time, when you have those super small pixels from that high of a megapixel count camera, you're usually having to give up the high ISO performance. That's why in the past, we've had a dedicated, let's say, low megapixel camera like the D3, the D4, the D5, the D6, and why those were kind of prized by wedding or press or news or sports photographers, because they needed low light. Well, now we've given you that high ISO performance with the flexibility of a really, really high megapixel count camera that can also go and shoot at 20 frames a second with full autofocus. So I think I hopefully answered that to the degree that while the performance may be similar, the actual capability of the Z8 in terms of its versatility as a camera is really what makes it so impressive. Now, I will go back and I'll say that how or why do I think that the Z8 is or can be better? I would say it depends on your processing. If you're going to go and shoot them, I don't know whether you're looking at them as JPEGs or RAWs, but I would bet that if you go and shoot them both at, let's say, 12,000 ISO, and they're both as RAW, and you go put them into Lightroom or Photoshop or Capture One, whatever software, and you go and are able to play with the noise reduction options on the Z8, because you're essentially softening the image as you put heavier and heavier noise reduction onto an image, you are going to soften the image. So a D750 file, if you really push it on the noise reduction side, it'll get, I don't want to say smudgy, but you will lose the sharpness of it. Whereas with the Z8, you can push it further with the noise reduction, because you still have all that extra information. You have so much extra megapixels that you're able to really kind of push that file a little bit more. And from what I've seen, you're able to get it looking as good, if not better, than some of what people would consider some of the low light kind of king cameras with a little bit of extra processing. So I don't know if I fully answered your question there. I hope I did. But I will say that I don't think you're missing anything, because the D750 is a spectacular camera, but the Z8 is just basically getting there, maybe a little bit beyond, while having way more capability than what the D750 was capable of. Okay, so Victor, so you're saying, okay, so ZF and just H, not H plus. That is a very specific question. So what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll do a little bit of testing, because there's some things that I have off the top of my head, and then there's some things that I maybe need to test and just kind of double check setting wise. So what I will do, Victor, is come back and check in the comment section below, and I will try and go and answer you a little bit further over the next day or so when I do have an answer for you. All right, so where are we looking? John is saying, can you please run through the setup for auto capture? John, the answer is no. That is probably the only thing that I'm not going to go through, and I do apologize, John. The reason I'm saying no is because it is a very, very intensive setup. And I think the manual for that alone is 60 or 70 pages. I had some of our guys at the office go and run through a quick little kind of scenario, just kind of get them all up to speed when we were coming out with the Z9. And before we even touched anything, I made them all read this manual, and they hated me. They absolutely hated me. So it is intensive, and I don't want to go through it all right now. I'll be very honest with you, because it will fully bog down this. There's so many different options, whether you want to select subject, whether you want to detect direction, whether you want to detect distance. There's so many things in there, so I can't really get through it right now. I will, in the next day or so, I will throw out either the manual for you to look through, and I do believe we have an NPS we have usually little walkthroughs for our pro features. So what I will do is I'll try and throw that out there, and that gives a lot of tips and hints for it. But walking through it entirely right now is unfortunately not really in the cards. We're already at, oh my, I've been talking for 53 minutes already. That's awesome. We're already 53 minutes in, so I unfortunately have a few more questions I still have to get through, and I don't want to get bogged down with that. Doogie Ham is asking, can the iMenu be customized for different menu banks on the Z8 and the Z9? The answer is, my gut tells me no. My gut tells me no, and sorry, everybody. I'm just going to quickly check this. So if I set that for white balance. Haha, yes, you can. But, okay, so what I just did there. All right, so we had talked earlier quickly about the extended menu banks within the photo shooting menu, right? So you have your A, B, C, and D. Well, the area that the I menu is shown as to where you can go and customize it is not in the photo shooting menu. So you cannot go and use your photo menu banks to go and customize that. It's shown in F controls. So it's in the F1 customize the I menu. So if I have this set up as, let's say I don't want picture controls there. Let's say I want exposure compensation, right? And then we go back here. Now you have dedicated custom settings banks. So right now I'm in C. And if I go to B and then go back to F controls F1, white balance. So you are able to go and choose your or have your I menu customized to different custom menu banks, custom settings, not the photo shooting banks. I hope that makes sense there. I'm going to call you Doogie for short. John Williams, I love your composing. Is there a way to start focus stacking with a single push of a function button? And John, and sorry, I'll turn that off. John, the answer is unfortunately no. This is actually something that I've sent in for recommendations. This is something that I've heard other people ask me in the past, where whether it's a single function the button that you want to start activate it, or you just want to be able to activate it from the setting from the menu, and then have it activate with, let's say, the press of a shutter, and that will start it. Because I know what you're probably thinking is, well, yes, it works well when you're set up on a tripod, but what happens if you're trying to handhold, you're trying to be super fast? You go through the menus, you set it all up, and then you want to frame it, you want to focus, and you want to get it all ready, and you can't. So this is something that I've recommended in the past, but unfortunately not. There is no way as of right now to go and do that. King Kruk Gaming, what about shutter angle for video? Yes, this is another recommendation that I've put in there on the video side, obviously. Shutter angle, if anybody is curious, it's just basically a way to lock in your shutter speed to automatically change based on the frame rate of video that you have selected. So generally, you're going to go and have it set for a 180-degree shutter angle, which means you're essentially going to have a double the frame rate. So if your frame rate is 24 frames a second, you essentially want 48 frames a second. Or, yeah, let's just keep it at that. But if you're going to switch from 24 frames a second to 60 frames a second to go and get some slow motion, well, you want your shutter speed to automatically do that doubling. Long story short, I won't explain it to everybody. King Kruk, unfortunately, no, as of right now, we don't have that, but I have definitely gone and put that in as a recommendation for future firmware for all cameras, not just the Z8 or Z9 for all, but we'll hopefully see if that's brought in the future. All right, so Anna's back and she's asking sport VR versus normal VR. With normal, I see the focus point jump slightly once I press the shutter. Does this affect the final focus? It's annoying. Yes. So, Anna, that's actually a really, really good observation as to what's actually happening there. So, with normal, when you press and hold down halfway, the VR, whether it's the sensor, whether it's the VR of the lens, doesn't matter. It all works the same way. What it's doing is it's obviously trying to constantly be compensating for your movement. Yeah, is that me doing that? Oh my god. Okay, sorry guys. I was seeing that pop up and oh man. Okay, sorry. I didn't know that I was the one doing those hearts. Sorry, everybody. What I was talking about was when you're doing VR. Sorry, my brain has gotten kicked over to me doing the heart things. When you're shooting with VR normal, the system is automatically going to be compensating, and in between shots, and you specifically will see it when you're like tightly framed against something. If you have it really, really framed up tight, or if you're shooting, let's say, movement as you're panning. As you're panning, in between your shots, or at the very end of each shot, the camera is going to recenter. Now, why is it going to recenter? Well, it's to give you the maximum capability of the VR system, because if it recenters to the center, well, now it has all of that movement to all corners, the top, right, top, down, up, down, left, right options, and you have the best VR capability that you can get. That's a good thing. But it is annoying because as you're panning, let's say you have a skier coming down the hill at a diagonal angle. Well, you try panning and having the camera recenter every single time. It is going to be annoying. So Sport VR is specifically designed to not recenter between shots. This means that for the photographer, it's less annoying, or the way our Japanese engineers would say it is, it's more productive for the photographer to follow the action. Now, I almost entirely use Sport VR unless I am shooting at very, very low shutter speeds, and I'm looking to get a handheld shot at half a second, whatever it might be. So if I'm shooting a landscape and I don't have a tripod, that's mainly what it's going to be. Low light landscape without a tripod. That's when I go to normal VR. The rest of the time I'm in Sport VR because that recentering I find annoying too, and I want to make sure that the composition that I actually have set up is not going to change, whether it's for a single shot or whether I'm panning for a moving subject. All right. So John is saying relative to Shane's question. Oh goodness. I'm not gonna relative to Shane's question. I find that going to pencil f2 and setting lens control ring to off solves the problem of accidentally. Okay, yeah. So John, that's actually a really good comment. So I'm assuming that's the aperture lock that we were talking about before. Yes. So all of our Z lenses come with a control ring. This control ring can go and do a number of things. It can go and do ISO, exposure compensation, aperture, or do nothing. For some people, they love having it set for a particular function, whether it's aperture, ISO. I love it for exposure comp, but as John points out, you can, depending on how you shoot, how you hold the lens, you can go and knock that out quite easily sometimes. So you can definitely go and turn that off if you want to make sure that you're not accidentally going to be hitting that. Yeah, so CDub777, I find that the images from the ZF, particularly in black and white, seem to be more vibrant compared to the Z8. Is there a way to set up the Z8 to get the same look as the ZF? Now, I'm curious if you're using the exact, because we do have with the Z8 a couple new, sorry, with the ZF, we have a couple new black and white options. We have the flat tone, and then we have, what do we call it? Deep tone, I believe. Yeah, deep tone monochrome, and then the flat tone monochrome. So if you're just using the regular monochrome, I'd be surprised if there's that much of a difference between the two. I could be wrong. I haven't done side by side. What I would double check is just make sure you don't have deep tone monochrome set up on the ZF, because that definitely will give a little bit of an extra punch to it. Tony Pags is asking, I am new to the Nikon system. Is NX Studio a good starting point for editing Nikon RAW files? Tony, you'll get a million different answers from that question. And the short answer is try it. Honestly, that's the only way to know for sure. I would say yes, because it will give you a good starting point to see what you like or dislike. You might look at the files and say, oh my God, I'm getting images that look great right out of camera, and there's very little need for me to make any changes to them because you love how the photos look in the camera, and then therefore you love how the files look on your computer. So it's great. It's free software. You get identical looking images, and you also go and get some additional, obviously, editing capability, whether it's your exposure compensation, your brightness values, your darkness, all of that jazz. But The reason I say what you may not like is it depends how you shoot. If you're shooting weddings, I will have a feeling, and as much as I do like NX Studio, there are some uses for it that it is not optimum. One of them being if you're shooting high amounts of or large amounts of photos, and you want to be going and doing major editing to a lot of them. So picture a wedding. You go and shoot 3,000 images. You probably are not going to want to go through every single one of them in NX Studio. Whereas something like Lightroom is designed for a high volume workflow. So I would say yes, start with it. Depending on how many shots you're going to edit, what your editing process usually looks like, you might love it. You might want to go and look for something else, but definitely go and give it a try. All right, so Edward, in the ZF, when shooting in the black and white mode, how come the viewfinder and the rear LCD still show in color, but when I view the photos, they are in black and white? Okay, so this is going to be going back to what I'm assuming is what we were talking about before. So I have the ZF plugged in now. So if of Edward, if you go into the ZF, if you go into the little pencil, so custom setting menu, and you go into de-shooting display, and we go down to D9, I will bet that you have adjust for ease of viewing, or you are shooting in a studio with strobes and the camera is automatically setting it to adjust for ease of viewing. What I would recommend is go and try show effects of settings. And what that will do is that will give you the option to say show effects and settings always or only when flash is not used. And then you can go and make that choice. Because what I think you're seeing is the camera basically in that D9 not showing you the exact what the file is going to look like, but it's showing you just an easy preview. All right, so we are almost at an hour and 10 minutes right now. I will say if there are any other questions, you guys can feel free to throw a few in there, just a few. But we'll slowly start wrapping this down. And if none of the other ones, no other questions come in, then we may go and end with Gustavo here. So is there a way to keep the same EV compensation value when switching between camera and video mode? When you hear silence, that means that it's a good question, and I will probably have to get back to you. Gustavo, I am going to have to double check this. My gut is telling me no. I know that there are certain things that you can keep going from one to the other. I don't think exposure compensation is one of them. Let me do a quick check. And if you can actually tell me, Gustavo, in the comments, which body you're shooting on, just so I can be as precise as possible when I do go and check this. Yeah, go tell me the body. I don't think it's possible, but definitely go and throw it in there, and I will get back to you in the comments over the next couple days. Tony's asking, do you okay? Both Z8 and Z9. Okay, cool. I'll definitely look at that and get back to you afterwards, Gustavo. So Tony, so Edward, you are showing effects. Okay, so basically you did have it set to. So Tony, did that help? Sorry, I'm reading that quickly and my brain isn't processing it. Let me know if that Edward, if that did fix that for you. And Tony, do we do this chat on a regular basis? And the answer is no. We have done this in the past. I believe, oh goodness, I do not remember the last one we've done. It's probably been at least a year and a half. it was maybe for the Z9. I think we did one for we announced the Z9, and then a little while after that, we did a kind of a Z9 AMA type of thing. We did a couple of them during COVID, but we haven't done one recently just because we weren't sure the appetite of it. If a lot of people wanted to see this type of info, so if you do really like it, then let us know, and we can try and do it every once in a while. We're not going to do it every month. We're not going to do it every even couple months, maybe 2-3 times a year, just because we don't want to bore you too much with me. Let's be honest with you on that one. But yeah, we will, if you guys really do like it, we'll definitely try and bring it back, but it won't be an all the time type of thing. Brian, will you shoot the solar eclipse in April? And if so, can you go over some of your setup and exposure time? So, guys, I'm going to be on a plane. I'm going to be on a plane coming from Vancouver back to Toronto, and I am going to miss it. So, unfortunately, I am not going to be shooting the eclipse. I am going to be nowhere near the path of totality. So, unfortunately, the answer is no. So, I don't have an exact setup myself for how I'm going to shoot it, but like I mentioned at the very, very top of the AMA, we are going to have a video coming up of how to prepare for the solar eclipse. We'll be coming out with that in a couple weeks, so make sure you stay tuned. Whether that's going to be on, it's probably going to be on our social, probably going to be on YouTube is going to be my guess. So keep an eye open for that on our channel. We will have a how to prepare for it, and then I have a feeling after the actual solar eclipse occurs, we will have kind of a final video ourselves, just how we actually shot it. So keep tuned, but unfortunately, I will not be. I'll be on a plane. I'm thinking about, if I almost don't want to put this out into the ether, but should we do some sort of Toronto event? Put it in the comments if you really like that. I won't be there, so yeah, so yeah, let our boss know because I won't be doing it. So the other people in the office will be. So I'm seeing a bunch of thank you guys. Thank you guys. This is kind of fun. It's a little bit nerve-wracking on my part just because it's an hour and 15 minutes worth of winging it and hoping I know the answers. So I hope you guys did enjoy it. I'm looking to see if there's any last little quick questions. Oh, Edward. So no showing effects doesn't correct the issue. Okay. You know what? Let me see if I can replicate that on my end. And Edward, are you using a flash or a strobe? Is what I would like you to. If you do have something turned on that might be kind of canceling that out. But I'll have a look at this and see if I can replicate it. But that's a little bit odd. I'll see what I can do. And beyond that, I'm just seeing a lot of thank you guys, and you're all, yeah, Gertrude, you want a Calgary event? Well, the totality isn't going through Calgary, so we can't do it that way. But guys, thank you very much for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. We always like kind of interacting with you guys, whether it's in person at events or even doing it this way. So thank you very, very much. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. For those of you who I did say that I would get back to you, check the comment section over the next couple days, and I will do the best I can to try and get you an answer. Thank you guys very much. Have a great night.